Hello, it's Stuart Crawford here again with another podcast. And this episode I want to look at what happens now in Ukraine, following on from the failed Wagner Group uprising. Just when we all thought that the writing was on the wall for Putin and his criminal cronies, Prigozhin and his horde of dubious veterans and ex-convicts got cold feet. Having progressed halfway up the M4 motorway to Moscow and taken out a slack handful of Russian attack helicopters on the way, they turned tail and retreated to whence they came, and have since departed Rostov-on-Don, which they had occupied a scant 24 hours beforehand. That the peacemaker appeared to be none other than Putin's principal catamite, President Lukashenko of Belarus, is hardly surprising. His grip on power in that beleaguered and God-forsaken country depends wholly on Putin's patronage, and he will do anything to please his master. Indeed, it is significant that it is to Belarus that Prigozhin has been exiled. He is still within easy reach as far as Putin is concerned. I wouldn't be staying in any tall buildings if I were him. As for his Wagner Group, it appears that its members are either relocating to their operations in Africa or volunteering to join the regular Russian army. Some of them may just go home to their families. The dismembering of Wagner is a significant blow for the Russian war effort. It's done much of the heavy lifting in the fighting and is responsible for Russia's only real tactical success to date, the taking of Bakhmut. With its withdrawal from combat, the Russians are much weaker, on the ground at least. In many ways, Prigozhin's retreat from Voronezh is as significant as was Bonnie Prince Charlie's retreat from Derby in 1745, when London and the British Crown might well have been within his grasp. Both of them got cold feet and chose discretion over valour. Defeat at Culloden was the prince's eventual fate. What Prigozhin's might ultimately be remains to be seen. Social media is awash with conspiracy theories about who or what may have been behind these events, the CIA, the GRU or China, but there's little point in speculating while the situation remains so fluid. It will all come out in the wash in due course. In the meantime, we might consider what effect, if any, all of this will have on the Ukraine conflict in general. For a moment, it looked as if Zelensky of Ukraine had been presented with a golden opportunity to deal a major blow, while the Russians were in obvious disarray. That moment may well have passed now, for the time being at least. And so the Ukrainian counteroffensive grinds on, by President Zelensky's own admission going slower than desired. We all know why this is so. Lack of armaments for the Ukrainian armed forces and the fact that the Russians have had plenty of time to prepare their defensive lines. However, if and when the Ukrainian breakthrough happens, it's not impossible that Russian morale will collapse, or that their forces will become so dislocated that any sort of coordinated defence is denied them. Then we might see the broad sweeping advances and liberation of Russian-occupied territory that everybody is hoping for. But I'm not holding my breath. There is one other factor at play here, of course, and that is the weather. All of this needs to be achieved before the autumn rains return and cross-country movement becomes nigh on impossible. And there isn't that much time left this year. Apart from this, the effect of the short-lived Prigozhin rebellion will mainly impact on Putin and Prigozhin himself. For the latter, now in exile in Belarus, the future could be short. Putin's enemies have a habit of suffering an early demise, and he is unlikely to be an exception. No friendly cups of tea for him or meetings above the ground floor, if he's wise. As for Putin, well, there's little doubt that the non-coup has left him weakened. He has seen his authority challenged, his rationale for invading Ukraine rubbished, and has been forced to compromise with his arch critic to the extent that he may, in due course, have to sack his defense minister Sergei Shoigu and Armed Forces Chief of Staff Valery Gerasimov, both of whom the Wagner boss has publicly accused of incompetence. Putin has also suffered the humiliation of watching an aggressive military convoy progress half the way to Moscow, while supposed loyal, regular Russian military units proved unable or unwilling to respond. This, plus continuing rumours about Putin's state of health, suggest that his time in power may be coming to an end. His enemies, and there will be many, will be plotting away behind the scenes, just waiting for the right moment to usurp him. That day may not be far off.